It's just been a minute since I talked about Wheel of Time. I missed it. Let's get into it. This video is going to fully explain the magic systems within the Wheel of Time from top down, beginning with understanding how reality itself within the Wheel of Time informs how the magic system works. What do I mean by that? Well, frequently throughout the series, you will hear characters say, "The wheel weaves as the wheel wills." Don't take that literally, but take it as like adjacent to literal, because reality within the series is actually composed of threads that come together to make the great pattern. So when they're saying the wheel weaves, they're just saying the threads of reality come together the way they're meant to. Often how people in our world say everything happens for a reason, except I find theirs far cooler. Now, what is exactly the force that drives this creation of reality? That would be the one power. It is a leftover, naturally occurring phenomena from the creation of the Great Wheel, or reality. This one power is split into two halves, Saidin and Saidar, which is dependent on your gender, which half you can access. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're a man, you can access Saidin, and if you are a woman, you can access Saidar. These two forces that come together to create the one power behave very differently. For men who can channel, they have an affinity for earth and fire. Women have an affinity for water and air. They share spirit just about equally, though. Well, wait, what are these elements I'm talking about? Interestingly, to actually use the one power in a way to alter the world around you, you pull from it various elements. One of these five, the earth, fire, water, air, and spirit. Combining them together, that's how you make spells within the Wheel of Time. Or if you were talking about a more generic fantasy series, weaves. And they literally alter the universe. But even embracing, as it's called, to use magic, the source is quite different between men and women. Women have this like relaxing, opening, meditative surrender to the great grandeur that is Saidar. It flows into them and they direct it like a riverbed directing a stream. Men, on the other hand, it's like a drunk chicken fight from Family Guy. And if you lose for a second, you can die. Kind of the more hostile emotional experience compared to the Zen state that women must achieve. The similarities and differences do not end there, though. For female channelers, they can actually see glowing auras around each other whenever another female channeler embraces Saidar, similar to what you see in the animations of Dragon Ball Z. For men, though, there's more of a feeling of the other person taking in Saidin. And while women cannot feel a man channel in any way, shape, or form, a man, if a woman starts embracing Saidar around him, tends to get goosebumps. There's also just fundamental differences between which weaves equal what between the two powers, so no man can teach a woman to channel, and the same is true for women to men. What they do share, though, is a euphoria, a severe draw to continually using this magic. For women, this allows them to constantly train while risking tiring themselves out to the point of exhaustion. The danger for men, though, for obvious reasons we're going to get into, is far, far greater. Now, there are some additional quirks to the Wheel of Time magic system I want to get into that I find to be really good at helping ground the system and how it functions in the series to feel less ethereal, less Lord of the Rings high concept, some spiritual thing coming down from the creator, and instead almost something that you can hack or master. You can actually invert and tie off weaves. Invert meaning that, yeah, a woman could see you casting at them, but if you tie off a weave, you can leave it there functioning and then also invert it so no one else saw what was woven. It makes it so that higher level casters have these incredible advantages on lower level ones and make the Forsaken, the servants of the Dark One, all the more deadly for knowing these. Women can also link with each other without assistance, while men cannot. So a group of women can come together and find a level of power that any single channeler could only dream of. But mixed circles exist, and there needs to be a man in them for them to grow beyond 13 for women. Kind of a metaphorical ha-ha from Robert Jordan of women can work together, men need a woman present to even cooperate. Now, something I want people to note is I mean they are altering the universe by affecting these weaves directly. All of this comes together and adds up to make sense. The reality is made up of weaves. You access the power that drives the wheel to alter how the elements around you are being woven, to then initiate these spells that alter your reality. It actually makes perfect 1, 2, 3 sense when you break it down. The end overall message of this mechanism being built by Robert Jordan, though, is these two halves of the same coin, drawing from the one power, work strongest together. And one of the real reasons that humanity has been in such a fractured and terrible state is that the women who can channel for thousands of years now have been systematically hunting and killing men who can channel. But for damn good reason, we'll get into it. Now, there are many dangers to actually using the power within the Wheel of Time. There is, if you are someone who is captured by an enemy, stilling and gentling. Addiction is actually a major element to channeling, the act of creating weaves by pulling in the one power. And if you are cut off from it forever, which is a spell someone can do to you if they have a team of large enough people, 13 is like the ceremonial number required, then you're screwed. And most people don't live long by their own hand after this, if you get what I'm saying. Because whether you're using Saidin or Saidar, using it kind of opens you to this true grandeur of the universe, third eye level, blah! And that being gone forever has physical ramifications on your body. Though, there is also burning out. You can do this to yourself by just pulling in too much or casting a weave that you haven't mastered wrong, and there's just danger to that too. Yeah, it's actually a big deal to get trained as one of these, which is why we're going to get into all the various organizations that do this later on. Being a wilder, someone just out there learning on your own, actually has one advantage, but is the most dangerous way to just learn how to use magic, debatably of like most magic systems in fantasy period. Most of them just don't live long and accidentally detonate themselves.
Ooh, what does this button do? Please, please, do not push the button. You have no idea what it...
Hence, boom. Yeah, you can just straight up become a bomb because you are, oh, it's so addictive. I want more, more, more. But then finally, there is why men have been hunted for thousands of years by women who can channel, and it is the madness that taints Saidin. Yes, men who can channel are open to the grandeur of the universe, and it's beautiful, but at the same time, they also get directly touched by the Dark One ever since the breaking of the world when they do so. Lore time. Thousands of years ago, when the first dragon, not the dragon reborn, managed to lock the Dark One out of the reality, out of the wheel, he did one last middle finger before he went, and it was because only men were sent to lock him out of reality, he was able to, through their channeling directly at him, taint their half of the one power. And now every man who can channel slowly goes insane, and it's actually like a manifestation of a bunch of different mental illnesses at once. Horrifically awful, and it can be as small as hearing voices and shadows moving, or it can be as big as I massacred my entire village because the dog told me to. This madness, we actually get to see it in like a metaphysical way at one point in the series, and you can see it is like a disease on the mind, these tendrils of the Dark One's touch polluting people's brains. Is evil, baby. And it raises the stakes. Every time you find out a male character can channel, it's like, cool, oh no. Because it's not a matter of if, it is when they will go mad. I've mentioned the breaking of the world as well. That is what happened once thousands of men who could channel, all trained up to be Aes Sedai, started going insane around the world. The world broke. It's called the breaking for a reason. Imagine if all the nuclear arsenals were actually launched. Basically, that occurred, and it's taken thousands of years after the War of the Shadow had already happened for society to recover to the point we pick up with in the Wheel of Time. And when it comes to power levels for both women and men, men tend to be a little bit stronger in the overall potential with the one power they have, whereas women tend to be a little bit faster and deft with their weaves. Typical gender breaking down from the era of fantasy this was written in. But magic isn't just limited to directly casting from individuals within the Wheel of Time, and there are also ter'angreal, Saidin, and ter'angreal. These are items that do a myriad of things. Some of them store spells already cast within them, and all you have to do is activate them to blast out, which is like cool, crazy, powerful whenever it happens. These are called ter'angreal. These can also bring you into a dream world where if you fall asleep with it on, you are rocketed into a whole other magic system that exists within the Wheel of Time. That's fascinating. An example of one of these, we have a stasis box where you can trap someone's soul for eternity. Dark. My favorite one of these is actually a ter'angreal that allows people to shoot out balefire without having to cast it. And balefire, just to put in perspective how these magic systems and weaves work, yes, there are portals that can take you to new places, and there's like fireballs, but there's like next level spells, and balefire, if you hit someone with it, undoes their existence. So the way I like to put it, if you ate eggs this morning, if someone hits you with a powerful enough blast of balefire in the afternoon, you will have not eaten those eggs that morning. So let's say you just killed a character. Someone balefires you not that strong, but it was just a few seconds ago. That person, not dead, and they'll just be back and confused, like, I saw Satan! Except there's not Satan here. There's the Dark One. There are also power amplifiers. These are called ter'angreal. Let's say on this bell curve, you kind of fall towards the bottom and you want us to be able to stand up with those towards the top. These will allow you to draw in more of the one power without burning yourself out. There are also people who are so weak they have trouble even embracing, even if they get the whole meditative state down that they need to. It's tricky. So women do the full surrender thing. Men have to seek a void, and then in that void, they also then have to fight the power they have. Fortunately for the weaker ones, though, the fight's a little bit easier. My favorite one of these is a little fat man statue that one of our people kind of subtly carries that makes them just a little bit stronger, and it gives them an edge whenever it's needed. And then there are the super weapons, the ter'angreal. The metaphors in Robert Jordan's writing from him being someone whose formative years were during the Cold War. The nuclear bombs. These can multiply someone's ability to channel to absolutely mind-boggling levels, to the point where at some point in the series we have a character holding the maximum amount of power one allows them to hold, and they realize they could end it. Like, capital it. All.
What a crazy way to end the world, huh?
Which allows you to clearly see the theme that exists within this magic system for Robert Jordan, which that there is great beauty in it and incredible potential, but with great power
Comes great responsibility.
There is also our trope Excalibur blade, which I can't talk too much about because of spoilers, but this kind of is the perfect manifestation of how Robert Jordan took so much of what you expect in fantasy magic systems and always managed to twist, put a bend in there to make it darker, but not in a way that can't be overcome by our characters as they learn more about the world they're in and mature as individuals. And there's kind of this pillar of it all in the Excalibur called Kalendor for the Wheel of Time. The sword that is not a sword that occasionally still gets used as a sword. ter'angreal can also have unique characteristics, like there are these smaller statues that access these gargantuan statues at different locations in the earth that are truly the like end-all be-all maximum amount of potential power. And the larger lesson that can be had from these as a reader is just how that's bad. And even in a chosen one's hands, unlimited power is not a solution, even when fighting the Dark One. But let's talk more about the Dark One, because he does not rely on the one power. And in fact, the Dark One relies on the true power, as of course, assholes are going to call their super special magic systems. And this is an entirely separate power source. In fact, the way the Dark One was originally let into our universe thousands of years ago by a scientist operating in a futuristic utopia before the world shattered was because through readings and instruments, they sensed this unlimited potential outside of reality and thought, oh, we can stop it just being some people who can channel and provide infinite energy to everyone in the world, solving all problems, creating a utopia. Except they let in Satan. And that infinite power, though, obviously represents corruption. And we see immediately some of the Aes Sedai, which we'll get into of this time, flock to the Dark One's ranks because of the promise of immortality and unlimited power the Dark One can bring with his alternative magic systems that he can bestow upon his favorites as a reward.
Ooh, that's a good boy.
It does in some ways function like the One Power, but just worse. Better if you only care about short-term game. Better, think Sith, stronger. But in long term, like flexing eyes and side effects, bad. I actually want to get into this a little bit deeper because the negative effects of using the true power aren't just internal and can be external as well. Being healed by it is described as more painful than healing done with the One Power. Opening gateways is said to make the pattern scream. And there are even objects that the One Power would struggle to destroy that the true power seems to have an easier time with. If the One Power is a byproduct of the creator creating reality, then the true power seems to be the antimatter to that creation. The Dark One's byproduct, a destructive force, whereas the One Power is a force of life. Though it does share some benefits like you see with the One Power, where it will unnaturally extend your life, and you can use all the nice convenient spells like opening portals, and potentially even more some interesting stuff within the Wheel of Time magic systems. True power is left vague in some ways intentionally because it's supposed to be like the foreign evil power that we don't entirely master, though whenever one of our characters come across it, he's bad. All of these coming together, though, the limits of what you can do with your access to the power is, of course, defined by your strength overall, but also your research and time. And it's told to us back in the Age of Legends, before this apocalypse happened, there really wasn't too many problems left in the world because there was just science integrated with this magic, so people were just pretty much in paradise. Portals everywhere, crops enhanced, climate could be controlled, there's flying vehicles and stuff back then. Like, they truly reached the peak. But everything went wrong because of the hubris of man. Now we know less. It's far more dangerous. Half of the people who can access the One Power are going insane and being culled out of existence. And so it's become massively important that if you are going to learn, you go to one of these centers of people who actually do know something about channeling, get you to the point where you can be safe. And where you are in the world is going to dictate where you end up going. There are, for the Westlands, the main landscape the series takes place in, the Aes Sedai, who are located in their own city-state of the White Tower. Now, they have ranks. You join them if you're strong enough to learn, and it will happen to be a novice. And once you show, okay, I can activate some discipline and possibly be an Aes Sedai one day, they'll let you become an accepted. And then finally, after years and years and years, unless you're a main character in only a few months of training, you can be raised to full Aes Sedai and join one of the Ajas, the white, the blue, the green, the red, the gray, the brown, and there's none other. Each of these Ajas dedicate themselves to a different mission in the world. Reds dedicate themselves to hunting down men who can channel and stilling them, which sounds evil on paper, but when you realize these guys are potentially turning into living mad nuclear bombs, necessity, though a lot of assholes join those ranks. There's also the whites who are dedicating themselves to philosophy, the browns who dedicate themselves to history and learning and knowledge, the yellows who dedicate themselves to healing, the greens who call themselves the Battle Aja and are always getting ready for the Dark One to return and to fight the Shadow. The blues, who they're like master networkers, spies, and organizers. They say their mission's more like, oh, we're just trying to, but they're master spies. Grays, who dedicate themselves to politics, but not everyone is going to make their way through all these ranks and become a full Aes Sedai. It's an incredibly difficult process to become accepted. You go from just being a novice to being deeply traumatized. I'll leave it to you to read it to find out, but they put you through some pillars they don't even entirely know how they understand because they're left over from the Age of Legends, and you have to experience god-awful nightmares and show you can keep a level head and channel, and then they're like, great, you're traumatized. Welcome to being an accepted. And it's even worse for coming an Aes Sedai. What the f***, guys? But if you don't make it, you can get scooped up by mysterious organizations who are trying to just look out for those who didn't make it or find wilders called the Kin. Now, The kin I'm going to leave out because they are an important group for you to learn about on your own, but just know that the Westlands do have other networks of individuals trying to keep women who can channel safe. Notice I said women. Okay, man. You guys are fucked! Then there are the Wilders. These are people who, yes, just learn on their own, and every single man who can channel is a Wilder. No one at the start of the series is training men who can channel, and they're just trying to survive out in the woods, hoping they don't kill people they love near them. Many Wilders, though, develop unique talents, men or women, because they're training themselves on their own. Their powers can manifest in strange ways where it's, oh, this person just has an affinity for, the weather in an odd sense, or this person can just, ooh, why are they so good at gateways, right? That can happen as well in regularly trained people where they just have affinities for certain things, but it is far more common in Wilders because they tend to figure one thing out and then hyperfixate on that because they don't have an organized, structured learning system in place. And then if you are an Aiel living outside the Westlands, the last thing you need to concern yourself about is the Wise Ones. They do not all channel. In Aiel culture, which are these desert tribe people who are just badass warriors, think Spartans from birth, because they have to fight over puddles of water, you can become a wise one regardless of your ability to channel. But if you can channel, they're going to put you on the path to become a wise one. They do not have all these ajas or anything like that, and instead, they focus more on just becoming like a great leader within their tribe, accomplishing certain feats of patience and things along those lines to just elevate to the point where eventually they consider you a literal wise one. And they also specialize in the dream world, which makes them, in my opinion, far more powerful on average than Aes Sedai if you be sleeping. They'll go kick your ass if you be sleeping. Another video. But how you get discovered to join these various ranks is actually one of two ways. You can be born with the, quote, spark, which means you will end up channeling. It's like a building energy within you. You've drank too much coffee. This is coming out no matter how much you fight it. And those people are almost always found to be brought to one of these groups. And then there are people who they could learn if they're encouraged, egged on, pushed over the edge. But this is not most people both ways. Like most people just cannot access the one power, full stop. And so instead, they're just going to be afraid of those who can wield universe-breaking power. And in general, just go, trust me, bro. I'm not going to do anything bad with it. But now that we understand the distinction between those born with the spark and those who are just going to learn to channel if they're taught, there's actually a final group we need to discuss. And that is the Seanchan. The Seanchan are foreign invaders whose lore and history I won't get into because it's not relevant to how the power works, but they methodically implement people born with the spark to be held as slaves. If you end up channeling and you are in the Seanchan Empire overseas, they will find you and they will put a special collar on you that makes it so whoever wears the other end of that collar, which is a certain group of people, will just be able to physically, emotionally, and mentally torture you into doing whatever they want and say. And you cannot embrace the source. You cannot channel and create weaves without their permission through this bracelet. It's horrific, just as awful as it sounds, and adds so much pain to this already deeply traumatizing setup. This brings me to speaking about the Forsaken. And I've been trying to figure out how to talk about these 13 dark friends without getting into spoilers, but I'll keep it at this. When the Dark One entered our world, before the breaking of the world and men went insane, they pledged themselves to him, being granted actual immortality and not just longer lives like you get from channeling. So they know essentially everything about the One Power, and some of them even have access to the true power, making them incredible threats to the world of man that go well beyond what even the most powerful Aes Sedai today are capable of. Now, since they're locked away in the Dark One's prison, if they started suddenly appearing throughout the story, that would be a very bad indicator on the state of that prison. But in conclusion, the Wheel of Time's magic system is sort of a combination to the epic fantasy magic systems that don't explain themselves you've seen before, and kind of adding in these elements of borderline like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where like it becomes more mechanical, except everyone's the Avatar. Everyone has access to all 5 elements, and it becomes how much can you actually do with this power you can wield, and how fancy your mixture of them can become. Are you just going to be hurling fireballs because you're pretty weak and uncreative? Or are you going to get to the point where you're messing with people's heads and doing things like compulsion with spirit, water, air, and all this stuff coming together to mind bend people to obey you? And yeah, there's kind of that bringing out the worst in people if that seed of awful is in you, that the temptation, the addiction metaphor that all of this stands for people kind of tends to bring out if you don't hold yourself to a high standard, which is why you see organizations like the Aes Sedai try and maintain a rigid order, rules, standards through things like the 3 Oaths. If you become an Aes Sedai, you swear the 3 Oaths. You will not make a weapon with the power. You will not use the weapon as a power less than the last defense of your life or your warder's life. They bond random men who have spent their whole life learning the sword to protect them in these situations. And you won't lie. Yeah, that's a high standard. That right there, that's a standard that's upward. With human nature being what human nature is, we see that these institutions across the board tend to fail. And it comes down to the individual and how they're willing to act, to sacrifice, to make the overall potential good of the one power being accessible to people outweigh the bad. Because at the end of the day, the one power was used to let the dark one in. And now we're just trying to recover from that one attempt to too good that became so awful. That is, in my opinion, the best explanation I can give you of the one power without getting into any other details from the Wheel of Time in a concise video. Let me know what you think of this in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you have not already. And hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.